Thanks again, Jared, for being a part of the YouTube channel. I've had you a couple times now, which is
Yeah,
awesome, and you've always been a great guest to have. And so I wanted to do a
I
Calgary
did my
real
hair for
estate
this
market
today, so
update. Yeah, that's right. It's all shampooed
yeah,
and
yeah, we're
combed.
good.
But I wanted to talk a bit about Calgary, the real estate market that's out there. And I figured, who else, who would be better than the man in Calgary? So this is Jared. Everybody, Jared runs a
Perfect.
really good channel when it comes to the Calgary real estate market, real estate in general. It's called the Chamberlain Real Estate Group. But maybe you can add on a bit and tell people more about what you're about.
Yeah, so we've been around for a long time, since 2004. Rebecca and I have been doing real estate that whole time here in Calgary. Grown our team. We're currently like the number one team in the real broker in Alberta. Just the stats came out this week, and we don't really care about that.
Nice,
It's all about
congratulations.
like, well, it's all about helping people and helping families, and we were our own independent brokerage and moved over to real last year in June, and it's been fantastic. And there's a team of, including all of our admins and video guys or whatever. There's about 30 of us now, so it's
That's a big job making a
it's a
change like
lot.
that. Like
It
that's
was
that's
huge.
that's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work, and yeah, and so we've been blessed with just being able to help so many families, and working here in Calgary and all the surrounding areas, and yeah, I've been going really hard on YouTube and building that channel, and nearing 10,000 subscribers here in a couple of weeks. So
That's a
pretty
pretty
exciting.
big milestone.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
It's
Pretty fun.
like in the YouTube world, if you have 1,000 subscribers, which I finally crossed
Yeah.
over, you're considered like not even on the radar as far as like YouTube is concerned. It's like once you hit 10,000, it's like you are a micro influencer. So you're like
Tiny,
this close to,
tiny,
yeah,
tiny.
compared to the big fish,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
that's how you grow it. I
I said
mean,
to my guys, I'm like, maybe one day we'll get a silver button. And they're like, yeah, one day. And I was like,
yeah.
you think
Well,
really
silver's
far,
what?
don't
Is
you? That's a
is
hundred
that
thousand.
100K?
That's when
Oh
YouTube
yeah,
sends you a
you'll
button. That's gonna be a long time.
well
We'll
at
get
the
there.
rate you're growing, that's like what, next week? No,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just
at least like Tuesday.
kidding. Yeah, that'll be a couple years, which is
Uh-huh.
awesome. So, talk to me a bit about the Calgary real estate market. Like, let's actually
Yeah.
start with the pandemic environment, right? We're
Okay.
coming out of it. The pandemic had obviously a big impact on real estate across the country. How did it shape? How did it change Calgary? And that, I think let's use that as kind of the base to
Sure.
build up where we are now.
Sure. So if we go backwards, even before, if you go before 2020 hit, um, Calgary was kind of coming into its own a little bit. Like there was a little bit of momentum coming into 2020. But if you go back to 2014 was the last time we kind of had, a real decent push in values and prices and momentum in the market. It's
Hmm.
been really, really slow. It's been really kind of hard, in some senses. Like the amount of conversations we would have with people where we're talking about like, you've lost this much value since you purchased, and here's
Mm.
what it is now. And it was kind of tiring having those conversations with people constantly for a long time. And so we came into 2020 like everybody else. It's like, what the hell's happening? We don't know what's going on. And something shifted. I think Alberta, Calgary specifically, but Alberta in general, um, was kind of poised for, this environment that we're in right now. And what I mean by that is, there is a lot of people who are moving here. The pandemic itself allowed a lot of people to realize they that they were okay working from home. They could continue working from
Mm.
home, and then they could start living where they wanted to live to have a better lifestyle. Or before it was they
Right.
had to live really near their offices, right? And so that's kind of changed, a lot of people's perspective in how they're living and working and doing everything. And Calgary specifically, has been put on the map, and we're not the. I've heard the rumors. I've talked to the people who spread the rumors and talked about things with their friends, and they all said like Calgary's this dirty oil abandoned town from the oil boom
Right.
bust
Yeah,
days
that's
and blah
right.
blah 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 blah. And so it's hilarious when they actually come out here and they're just like, this place is beautiful, it's amazing, we
There's
can drive an hour
mountains,
to
there's
Banff.
nature,
Yeah,
there's
like when I've gone to Banff with people for the first time, It's hilarious. Like, they're just on their phones the whole time, and I'm just like, "This has been my backyard my whole life." Like, it's
I
anyways,
know.
so it's
Yeah. Oh,
it's
it's
it's pretty
beautiful
cool.
country out there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
and so,
it's been neat.
like you had mentioned, moving, right? So where are these people moving from? Are they migrants? Are they immigrants? Like,
Yeah, actually, I
what's the
found
mix,
a
if you
great
know it?
chart. Let me show you this here. Um, so
Let me
on
flip you to
here,
solo mode here.
yeah, there we go. So one of the things that we've noticed, and this is a little bit small, but you should be able to see it okay. This goes all the way back to 1950, and this is the net migration into Alberta. In the 70s, early 80s, there was a boom or push
Oh,
of people. There was all of this that
yeah.
happened after the year 2000, and then here's where we are, yeah, in
Oh, wow. That's
2020.
an amazing chart.
So it just shows you how many people are moving here, and it's quite shocking. And we can feel it now when we're driving around. It's different. And what's really interesting, this came from Korea, but it's technically from Stats Can. Um, the red here is 2022 in Q3, and the amount of
Yeah.
people that moved to Alberta from BC and, oh, not Quebec, from Ontario, that's where they're coming from. And
So it's
and
more migration than immigration, but probably immigrants that have landed into BC and Ontario as a
yeah,
landing point, right? And
yeah.
then coming to Calgary as a result of that.
Yeah, but there's also been a ton of international migration here too. And so I think the amount of people that we've helped who are Canadian, who, I mean, I've had so many phone calls over the years where it's someone, let's say they're living in, I mean, I just pick a country. Like I've talked to people that have been in Germany and Switzerland and Dubai. We've helped people come from Dubai and they're moving here, like just all this kind of stuff. And we've helped all these people, and they're from Canada, but they've overseas, and they're originally from Ontario or BC,
Mm,
and they're like, I don't want to move back there. That's no, I know I don't
right.
want to live
Yes.
there now. So now where do I want to live? And so, it's been really, really interesting, just especially with the reach of YouTube and videos and people watching what we're doing. We're just constantly, even still now, like we're constantly getting calls and emails coming in just saying, "Hey, we're coming in March. We're planning on looking. We want to look at stuff. Can you guys help us?" And so our team is here and
Yeah.
ready and excited, and we're getting good at it. So,
That's awesome. Well, actually,
yep,
it's funny that you mentioned that because like the desire to move once you realize that there is actually other places outside
right,
of, Vancouver and Toronto. Because even a video that I'm recording at the end of this month,
mm,
or I guess the end of March, is with a guy who's literally it's his home buying journey, and he felt stuck basically in
yep,
Toronto, and then he took a trip once to like the Maritimes and was like, my God, this is beautiful. I could live here.
yeah,
And now like home ownership is possible because it's a whole different price range. It's a whole different,
totally,
right. And so we're kind of doing a video on that, but that's why, right? Like I think for a lot of people, they feel like there is no other alternative. Like Toronto and Vancouver is the
yeah,
center of the Canadian universe, so to speak. And then
yeah,
once you actually find out there's other places, because it's funny, I've been to a lot of different places in Canada, all of the provinces, not all the territories, but all of the province, like all the provinces for sure. And I can tell you, there's a lot of places that I would much rather live than Toronto and Vancouver. Like they'd
yeah,
still be on the list, but they
yeah,
wouldn't be like top of the
top
list,
of the
right?
list.
I even put Calgary like before someplace like Vancouver, right?
Yeah,
So the fact that people are now able to see it through channels like yours,
yeah,
to go and see like there are other options that home ownership can be more affordable or attainable elsewhere, and you don't have to sacrifice this quality of life that you
yeah,
otherwise would be hoping for is actually a good
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, the amount of conversations too that we've had where someone from Vancouver is talking about we're considering moving to Victoria or we're considering moving to Calgary,
It's like
and it's
two
like,
very
when
different.
has that been the yeah, when has that been the
Yeah.
choices or the options of when you're going to move? And so, so it has been funny sometimes sitting on calls with people because all of a sudden Calgary is really figuring itself
Yeah.
out, right? And the number of new builds that are happening here, um, it's shocking. I found one chart. I don't know if I have it here, but I found one thing this morning. Just the number of new builds that are rental
Okay.
specific, and so there are a ton. It is like if you look at over the years, it's like flat, 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 and then
Right.
bam. and it's higher than detached houses, like the number of detached house starts. And it's like one of the top things that are happening. And so the home builders, investors, they're kind of responding to people who are moving here, and trying to keep up with that in terms of new rentals, new properties, that
So
kind of
like
thing. So, but the hardest part on our market, I think, I was going to say, the hardest part of our market is when you have people moving from out of town, they don't have inventory to
right,
sell, so they're coming to consume and eat up what we have when we are already in a place where we don't have
right.
enough. And so we would love for them to be able to sell something too, because now we're trading and moving up and figuring that out. But now it's just some people are coming and consuming and buying versus
Well, and
selling something. So it makes it a little bit harder in our market and supply and
our
demand.
immigration
Yeah,
levels have been off the charts for quite some time. So there's pros and cons to that, right? And one of the cons is
yeah,
definitely how can you
absolutely,
build housing necessary to keep all of these newcomers, in
to
right?
keep up.
Because a
Yeah,
lot of them are moving to Canada for a certain lifestyle, right? And we pride ourselves on that. Canadians have a very
yeah,
good standard of
yeah,
living, and of course, the more people who try to get that standard of living, it might be jeopardized in some sense. But let's
yeah.
say you had mentioned the investors and they're the builders. They're all focused right now on
Mm,
rents, and that makes sense because there are a ton of people who felt in a way priced out of the market from home buying, and so naturally you just have this influx, or everybody sways into being renters now. So if for those
yeah.
that may be investors listening to this, not necessarily first time home buyers, do you have any thoughts on, is Calgary a good time to be getting in, or is now, because there's so many people that are building these rentals, is have they gone too far? Are they going to build too many rentals, and as a result, when things correct,
Yeah.
it's all going to come crashing down?
Well, I mean, when you look at those migration charts,
Right?
can you overbuild right
Yeah.
now?
Well, fair point.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know the I don't know that for sure, and I don't know if anyone does, because time will
Right.
tell, right? And so I think the thing with that um, is over time, our price is going to be higher next year at this time than they are this year in Calgary, most
Mhm.
likely. We've I surveyed our team over the for the last month, and I said, "How many of you have been in multiple offers?" And what's kind of happening, because again, there's just low supply. So for a long time, I think we just passed this number, but for coming out of Christmas, there was under 1,000 detached homes available for 1.3 million
Under
people.
1,000. Oh,
Under 1,000,
wow.
it was like down to 950, 980. It kind of changed every day, but this
That is
last week or
really,
so, it
really
finally
low.
jumped over
That's
a
really, really
thousand.
low inventory.
Really low. And so what's happening is, for example, one of our guys, he was in a multiple offer situation where there was 22 offers
That's
on one
bonkers.
property. There was 12 offers, 9 offers, another 9 offers. There was 4 or 5 offers, stuff that have sold 50, seventy
So,
thousand
so
over
for people who
asking.
may not know the
Like,
numbers, like what would you said it's under a
yeah,
thousand, but what would a typical number look like? What would a healthier number look like? Because I would say that's not a healthy number. What would a healthier number of inventory
no,
look
so
like?
total market, for us to feel kind of balanced and whatever, would be about 5,000 total
Right,
listings, and I would say that 1,000 number, if you add everything in, we'd be around 17 to 2,000 total listings, something
right.
like that.
So significantly
So
more.
we're still a lot less than what a balanced market would
Right.
look
Okay.
like.
So with that being said, you're expecting housing prices to go up in the next year, so to speak. I mean, obviously, you don't have a crystal ball. We're not expecting that. We're just
Yeah,
educated guesses is the best that anyone could ever ask for. But there's a lot
yeah,
of news. There's a lot of things that are saying, hey, like foreign buyers, they're wrecking it all. Let's ban them from buying. There's people that are
mm,
saying, oh, the housing prices are crashing, and obviously these are nationalistic perspectives. They don't look at any one individual market,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
and I would even challenge some of that thinking even on a national level. But let's narrow that scope and
yeah.
and talk about Calgary and how it relates to that. So is Calgary at risk of collapsing prices in the future?
If there's 7 people that need a banana and there's only 1 banana in the grocery store, the price of the banana isn't gonna go down.
Right.
And
I agree with you.
Unfortunately, there's not many bananas in Calgary. That's a weird analogy, but
Yeah,
it
but it works. It works.
that's
Yeah,
what I had. I had a banana this morning, so that's what made me think of it.
that's awesome.
But it's true. I honestly believe it comes down to supply and demand. Now, there are a lot of other things that are happening with interest rates, um, the talk of recession, so a mindset that I think a lot
Hmm.
of buyers and sellers are thinking is out there, but when they actually come to market and they actually start doing something in Calgary, it's totally different than what they're seeing in headlines. And so that's
Yep,
very
for
confusing.
sure.
So what happens is a lot of buyers, they actually need to almost go and lose a couple multiple offers until they realize how much they have to fight in
Right.
order to win something, and then they're going to figure it out. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that because that's just kind of is what it is, right?
Right.
And as long as demand keeps growing or stays at where it's going to continue to keep going. And I kind of looked at some numbers. I don't know if I have them. Actually, I'll show you this. Like part of the demand stuff. There you go. So this is a quick chart understanding a little bit of Calgary. So this is like the percentage of homes that sold at or over list price between, oh, there we go, between January and February. So January 28th, February 27th. So it's just pretty recent numbers. 43% of detached homes sold at or over list price, 28% of apartments, and shockingly, over 50% of townhomes. So, what's happening is first time buyers and people who, let's say, over the last 2 years had a certain budget, as prices have increased or changed over the last little bit, that has, or if they're trying to buy at the top of their budget, and let's say they're approved for whatever that number is, when they try to shop at the top of their budget, they keep losing because they can't win because they're like, I can't go any
Yep.
higher. So they need to adjust what they're doing and actually go down, and sometimes they have to change property types. So I think that's
Mm,
why we're seeing townhouses and apartments
because they're
starting to, and
converting
it
into
that's
that
right, because
property
'cause they've
type.
gotta adjust, what they're looking at. So if they're, let's say, 500,000, just an easy number, was their limit, they're kinda realizing a lot of houses are going for over that, and they can't compete anymore.
Right.
Even if it lists at 470, it's gonna maybe sell for 510, and so they're
Yeah,
not
we may
gonna
not get
win.
the spacious backyard. We got to go for something a little bit
That's
more
right. So maybe let's
modest. Yeah.
adjust and go to a townhouse, and figure that out, but there's a lot of people who are also adjusting. So
Hmm.
it's just a strange market, like,
See, you
it's
know what I find
yeah,
fascinating there is that you talked about this perception, and obviously there's the analogies that, or not the analogies, but the whatever it's called, the sayings that go with investing. There's two things that drive the market: fear and greed, right?
right.
And this concept of fear, this impending pandemic that's going to wipe everybody out, seems to be something that's prevalent. I mean, even I think that there's going to be some level of recession, and yet,
For sure.
and while that would typically affect the market, and yet, I have had the busiest January and the busiest February I
Hmm,
think I've ever had in terms of pre-qualifications, meaning the
hmm,
amount of people who are
we're
getting
getting
ready
ready.
to buy is
Yeah,
the largest that I've ever seen in my 10-year career, which is it's a staggering number. So
yeah,
but yet, if you have a conversation with any single one of them, they'll say, "Yeah, a recession is coming." Um, and then I'll be like, "Well, don't you fear it or whatever?" Nope, this is what's right for me. So it's like it's going to
yeah,
affect everybody else, but not them, and that's how everybody perceives it, which is really, really fascinating. So you have
yeah.
all these people who think a recession's coming,
Hmm,
which would typically in some ways almost be a self-fulfilling prophecy because when people think
yeah,
historically a recession's coming, people buy less and end up causing a recession. And yet for some reason this one feels a bit different in the sense that everyone feels like a recession's coming, and yet
yeah,
all of them still seem apt to purchase.
yeah. I wonder if it has something to do with the amount of savings that people have been able to save. And so, whenever individual, and I haven't looked at this number, but I know for myself, whenever we have cash in the bank, it's what my last coach told me. Dan Sullivan. He said it's called cash confidence. And so
Mm,
if you have cash, you can feel a little more confident about what you're doing and where you're going. And so in this case, that could be a part of it, where some of these people have more cash than they've ever saved, even if it's only 25 grand. Not only, it's a lot of money.
right.
But if
Yeah.
it's 25,000, they
This
might
is
sit there and
Jared
go,
here. 25 is nothing.
no, but I'm saying, like, when you're buying a house, like, you need a decent amount of cash,
Yeah, you
right?
need a chunk of
And
change for sure.
so yeah, and so but for some people, um, like, just that confidence that comes with cash, and I wonder if that's a part of it. I don't know. What do you think?
See, like, well, because and this is where I think I'm conflicted because and I think this is where if you read enough news, the news is also conflicted because you'll get separate articles. One will be like, the housing prices are collapsing. And then on the next article, it's like housing
Yeah.
prices are stable and turning around. And then you got another one that says people have more cash than ever before. And then you got the next article that comes out and says
We are most in
62% of
debt.
people are like the most in debt they've ever been and
I
are
know.
like one payment away from like insolvency. Like, oh, just weird. And it's like, but and then you're like, oh wow, that's two different perspectives. And then you realize that one's written by the same author. Right.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it's
Yeah.
so it's like, what the hell?
Yeah. What's going on?
It's yeah, so I don't know. That's why I find it confusing because I mean, it could be one of those things where both are technically true, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it is technically possible that people have more savings than ever before because I see the number side of it, right? Like you see
Yeah.
the homes and the purchases and the types that they're making. I see all the financial sins, right, so to speak, right? And so yeah, there are people who will come to me and be like, "Hey, Conrad, I got like $40,000." It's right, but then they have like two car loans, and then they have
Yeah,
the
yeah.
credit cards racked up, and they have more savings than they've had before. They
That's
also
what I
have
was
more
gonna
debts
ask
than
you
they've
is, do you
also
see,
had before.
but they also have more debt, but do you see people having more down payment than typical, where maybe way more was 5% and now they're going, "Hey, I've got like 10% now," kind of thing?
I'm seeing more down payments, but and here's the weird part, it's not from them. Like
Oh,
it's
it's
not from the
gifted.
home buyers themselves. It's gifted from some source.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm seeing a dramatic rise in that. There's a ton of grandparents
Interesting.
and a ton of parents that are gifting more than literally ever before.
And where are these buyers
All
coming
across
from?
all across Canada.
Okay,
Like
cool.
I can't even be like it's just Toronto. Like obviously Toronto has been prevalent for
Yeah.
gifted down payments for a
Actually,
long time.
Vancouver even more. If you have you
Well,
seen
yeah,
the
well
numbers for
Vancouver and Toronto,
Vancouver?
yeah. It's ridiculous, but
Unbelievable.
it's almost like a class system in a sense. Like you're not going to buy a home unless you have someone who already owns a home that can gift you the like.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous in that sense. But it's in all markets like Saskatchewan, Alberta, even Manitoba, the Maritimes. A lot of them have like escaped that for the longest time. But I would say like right now, half of my buyers have a gift of some sort, which is
Wow.
maybe just an anomaly for this period. But it's
Yeah.
I sure hope it's not a trend. I would like to think that everybody will have the capacity at some point to own a home and not have to rely on a gift to do that. But
Yeah.
it seems like the trend is growing in all
Yeah.
provinces.
Yeah, and we've had buyers that have moved to Calgary because they were gifted a down payment, and
Mm,
their parents told them, "We will help you buy a house. We can buy it cash. You pay us back, but you can't do it here. We can't do it
mm.
in Ontario because it's too unaffordable. We got to find somewhere else to do all this." And so we've had that happen too. And so
Interesting.
it's yeah, the whole affordability side of stuff is, I don't think it's gonna go away. I think um actually I have one other chart. Can I show this really quick?
Yeah, you bet.
Um so this one here, I find this really interesting because this actually shows Calgary, I'm sorry, Calgary, Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and Ottawa. And it shows kind of their path since 2005. And
Okay.
you can see back in 2010, you've got Vancouver is yellow and Toronto is blue there, and how quickly they just rose, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
look how sharp that drop off is at the end. Where
Mm-hmm.
Calgary, it's hard to see. Actually, I'll zoom in here. So Calgary is this black line, and this is
Yep.
Montreal, and this is Ottawa. And what's interesting is if you were to draw kind of a solid line, it should make it straight for me. So you can still see, um, make sure it's showing. There we go. So you can kind of see, like, even back to 2015, like we're still above. Actually, my line's even low from where the actual dot is. But you can see how our market is still up compared to where it has been, where a lot
Right.
of other markets, like here is, I forget who I said that was, but anyways, but a
I
lot
think
of
it's
them
Ottawa.
have dropped. Uh, you're right. Yep, that's Ottawa. Where a lot of them have come down, and so it's to me, I find this quite fascinating because again, Calgary just has so many things that are pushing up on prices and holding
Hmm.
prices there. Will they drop? Will they go into negative year over year? They might. I don't know. I mean, we jumped
Yeah,
so
long
quickly
term,
last
you
year,
don't have to worry,
right?
but
But I mean, even if you see a 1 or 2% decrease year over year, we still had like a record crazy year. Like it doesn't
hmm,
mean that the market's fallen apart, and I think that's the confusing thing too, because we're probably going to see Toronto and Vancouver prices start to figure themselves out over the next 6 months, and and
I
they
agree.
might continue going up. I have no idea, but the thing is it doesn't change the fact that people are having a hard time affording living in those places. Because if you're spending 60 to 80% of your average income on the average cost of living in those areas, oh my gosh, like you don't have anything else to live with. And I think
You are
that's
house
the
broke.
real
Yeah,
problem, right?
for
And that's
sure.
what I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, regardless of a gifted down payment from parents. You still are trying to figure all that stuff out. So and that's and those Toronto buyers, if they're kind of inner city, like Toronto core, or some
Hmm.
of the right surrounding areas, if they've got to move 3 4 hours away to find something they can afford, well, what's stopping them from moving to a different province now? Because
Right.
what's the
Yeah,
difference?
that's
Like
that's
whether
that's
you drive
unrealistic
four
commute.
hours or you fly four
Yeah.
hours, like at the end of the day, like what's happening?
Well, at
So
that point, you're just going to be remote for sure.
yeah, yeah. So it's just interesting,
So,
and I think it's gonna keep on being this way. We're not gonna this isn't just gonna disappear. I think this is the next 5, 10 plus years where this is gonna continue to figure itself out.
and so, do you have any advice off the top of your head? I'm not going to put you on the spot for
Be
first time home buyers.
pre-qualified.
Yeah, yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
not
Hey,
even joking.
I I am actually seeing it. Are you seeing it too? Because I'm seeing a ton of people like being referred to me right now by a lot of realtors. You're like, hey, we put an offer on a place and they couldn't get approved. Like, can you bail us out? And I was like, well, first of all, why were you shopping with an
Yeah,
unqualified buyer to begin with? But
yeah.
I'm seeing it a ton. Like, are you seeing it?
Um, we've had more deals fall apart these first 2 months of this year than we've had like percentage wise. It's a really high percentage compared to what we typically
Hmm.
do in terms of our own team. And I think a
Because of
lot of that
financing?
uh it's not like financing. It's I think it's some of it might be financing, but some of it also is just um expectations, right? They're kind of
Mm,
frustrated because they had to fight for this condo, and then they're like, I don't know if I want this condo now.
right. Was it
But I'm like,
perfect?
but then there's like, but there's nothing else out there. So are we
Yeah.
just gonna wait for something else, or do you want this? And so I think there's a lot of
Mm,
those things that are just kind of this undertone of the feeling of what's happening in the market, and people adjusting to what it's going to be this spring. And
right.
it's not like they're getting out of the market. They're just trying to figure out what it is they want and how to engage with the market when they're trying to find the
Right.
place they want to
It's a
buy.
year of
So,
resetting expectations.
yeah, I think so. Maybe not a year, but definitely for sure a
First
good
half year.
quarter or a couple months. Yeah,
Yeah.
of like what is it? What is it? Right. So, yeah.
So you showed quite a bit of graphs and stuff like that and data. Do you have like a report that you have available
Oh,
for people to see these things?
yes, absolutely. Good
Right
T-ball
on.
thing. That's kidding. So
Right
no, like
on.
the first of the month. So if you guys are watching and you're interested in the Calgary market, the first Sunday of every month, we do probably a 20 or so minute market video that comes out on our channel. We go deep into numbers. We talk a lot about charts. We kind of talk about news articles, all this kind of good stuff. But with that, last month was the first time we did it. we've actually released a market report that accompanies it, and so you can download that. So I'll give you the link so you
Yeah,
can
and I'll
have it
make
on
sure to
this
put that in the
video.
description. Yeah,
Yeah, and so, that link, no matter when you're watching this, if it's in 3 months, if you click the link, that I'll give you, it'll have the most updated market report that you can download,
nice.
for Calgary, and so a lot of this stuff we put in there, we put in some commentary, I put photos of my dog. No, I don't put photos of my dog. Lots of good stuff in there.